Good morning.
Good morning.
I guess we'll wait a few minutes to see who else joins us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Just waiting for a couple more to jump on. Now, I think we can get started. We have 3 of 4. I think that gives us a quorum.
Yep, let's go.
All right. So, let's see the agenda.
Emily had to leave because of audio issues. So she wrote in the chat she'll join us really quickly again.
Okay. And Tiffany, is it okay to do real quick introductions? Or can I ask about Sarah? I don't recognize Sarah Morales's name.
It's a special meeting. It's a public meeting. So you'll
Okay,
have
that's
anybody.
fine. I just wanted to see if it was a public, like someone just joining us. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Welcome, Sarah. must be having, oh, there's significant technical difficulties. All right, you're able to hear us, Emily? Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We'll get started. So the first thing on the agenda is really to identify causes of health disparity. Now, Tiffany, I do have a question for you. At one of our meetings, you had said something about like a health equity report, or that there was going to be a review. Does that ring a bell?
It doesn't. No, it doesn't ring a bell for me. There's going to be an
So,
equity assessment, but it's not going to solely focus on health.
okay, so that's what I'm talking about, the equity assessment. And can you give a little bit more detail about that?
I can't
Just,
because
okay,
it's going to be RFP'd, and
right.
I can't give any other information. But we will
Okay,
be releasing an RFP soon for a health equity assessment. Just
okay,
because it goes through our competitive bid process, it's just yeah.
right. But it will be a little
But it will
while
be a
too.
comprehensive, yes, equity assessment is what we're looking for.
So, okay. So I think when that is actually completed, that will be some really good information for us to use moving forward. Until we have that information, really, we need to sort of identify causes of health disparity. Now, I also want to ask a quick question, Tiffany, about the report. So we submitted our report, revisions, resubmitted. Is that report going to come out, or can we use that for parts of that for this report that's going to be due in October?
I would say you can use it for parts of what's going, or you can use parts of it for what's going to come out in for what you'll submit in October. We did not get everyone's edits to that report.
Okay. Which I think actually is helpful, because that I think is in line, like what we submitted for last year was in line with what at least I have continued to find related to health disparities and health inequity. So we went through Baptist, St. Joe, and the health department's, essentially their community needs assessment. And the things, I just want to list here the things that were identified in those three reports as top needs. For the health department, the community needs to be healthy were access to care, opportunity for economic mobility. The top health issues, behavioral and physical health, with mental health being a top priority, which we had put into our last report. We hadn't really defined that very well, but we did mention mental health, chronic conditions, and infectious disease. And then well-being issues, housing, adolescent and youth homelessness, employment, and financial stability. I think really those are all things that we know are leading to the health and wellness of our community. Baptist, their top five, let's see, substance abuse, cancer, and cardiovascular disease, their top three, I guess. And then for St. Joseph, access to care, lack of collaboration, safety, unsafe housing, physical activity, mental health, substance use. So again, very similar issues from all three community needs assessments. And then I was looking at the, what is it? playbook to address social drivers of health. And it's talking about the links between health outcomes and the social drivers of health, and the ones that they have listed as top priority: housing security, food security, education access, and a healthy environment, which again is all the things that we just mentioned. So anybody have anything else that they want to add to that? So we were hoping to be able to use a town hall to gather information and inform some of our decisions. I am not sure, and Tiffany, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I am not sure that's going to happen in order for us to put a report in for October.
I don't believe so. Not before October.
Okay.
And we discussed the townhouse being part of the equity assessment. That RFP will probably not be published until September.
Okay.
That also, they'll probably also have 12 months to do their work.
Okay. So that's going to be a while. Can you? I think I can send Racia the report from last year, like the one that we submitted. I can send that out to her so she can review, and I can send it to the whole group too, just so Emily, you have the most up to date, because we'll need to use that to really inform our report. And we have another meeting on September 17th. So if you guys wanted to review that, and then we can fine tune our recommendations. And I can send you all of the information, and Tiffany, I'll just send you the notes too, and then you can upload them to the website, wherever they need to go. Like, oh, you're on mute.
No, you all have access to the Google Drive, so you feel free to upload them on the Google Drive.
Okay, so I can just
Yeah.
upload them on the Google Drive, but nothing needs to go on the website. None of those, or
No, they will. Yeah,
okay,
those are also in draft form. They've not been approved, so they won't be published.
perfect. Okay, I'll just upload everything there, all the notes, all the information. I do think as we move forward in making recommendations, we talked about data, the need for data, the need for stratified data. And so I think that that's important. And then we've also talked about how the systemic racism, declaring racism a public health emergency, and how the structural racism has affected people's ability for transportation, health literacy, education, access to care, like all the things. And we've talked about a playbook for our county on really how to address these things. Not that we would make the playbook, but that would be a recommendation that we would have a playbook. And I think that the first steps to that playbook would be education to the community about the importance of disaggregated data, so that the stratified data by race and ethnicity. And there's a whole discussion at the federal level on really what collection of that data looks like. And I don't know that we need to get into all of that currently, but I do think it's important that we start providing some education, or we make the recommendation that as a community, we want to report standard data, so then we can understand how our programs are performing. And then Tiffany, do you have any data for the mobile food market? Do you know what data they collect for that? Oh, you're on mute.
Um, I guess it would depend on what data you're looking for. They don't have customer demographic data.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that really is what I'm looking for. Um, Partly because I think it's important for us to evaluate these programs on, are we helping those who we say we're helping? Are we helping those most in need? Do we know who's most in need? You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of times we put these programs out there. They're great. They're wonderful. People are getting access to them. They love it. But are all the people who need it getting it or have access to it?
They do have access to it because that's part of the way that the mobile market program was written, because I wrote it. Um, so they have to be in specific food desert neighborhoods. So it does not, can I emphatically say that it is helping the people that is intended to help? Absolutely. Um, because I know the specific sites. So I can give you the site information on where they go, and the I guess number of sales at those specific sites. We can draw conclusions from that. But I am very reluctant to have like a CHW tallying whether black folks or white folks or whomever is, or Hispanic or Congolese, are purchasing from the mobile market.
Yeah, and I understand that, but I also think an evaluation of a program that those things are important,
Mhm.
because if for some reason we're
It's being
not
evaluated.
okay,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that we need that information specifically. I'm just thinking as far as evaluation of programs, is there a standard for evaluation of programs to understand, yes, we're helping, you know, the white community, the black community, but are we helping Latinos? Are we helping those Asians that are actually in the lower socioeconomic group? Like, are those people getting the access? Yes,
Mhm.
Emily.
I think maybe what we could do there, I do appreciate the sensitivity around that information, and coming to get food, do we want people to feel like they also have to fill out some kind of survey to do it? Is there the trust that that feels good, that as you're coming to get healthy food, um that I can see how that changes the experience. And
Mhm.
so maybe, to your point, that we could look at, to Director Brown's point, that there's specific attention about where the areas are. And so in terms of data collection, we can do more to reflect a whatever you're using, whether it's like a heat map, or what information do we know about those particular neighborhoods. And so maybe we could evaluate along that.
That's exactly how we're evaluating it. And that's how we
Yeah,
chose the sites.
yeah. And so
So
I think part of what we might be able to do is not just evaluate the program, but also I do think we have the opportunity and the power to um, celebrate, to lift up, to amplify the
mhm.
program. And so, you know, maybe part of what we could look at is, where can we kind of um, where can we amplify it? Where can we um,
And I,
I don't know how else to say it, but I wonder, I imagine, and it would be interesting, I'm sure you could tell us, Director Brown, how you all are already being evaluated and how that's part of the program. And, if there are any barriers that you're experiencing that we can help with, that we can, bring attention to, or expertise from the community, or anything like that that we might be able to do to support it.
And I think more like I'm just thinking more globally. I think in the programs, do we have a standard evaluation process to make sure we're helping those who need the service, whether it be the mobile market, whether it be the food program at the library, whether it be whatever program that we have, is there a standard way to make sure that people are receiving the help? And then if they're not, then we can tailor those programs, not we, but the county, and so then to me, a recommendation is, do we have a standard process for evaluating programs, to make sure the people in need are getting those services? So I don't necessarily mean, Tiffany, that we need all of your data and we want to evaluate it. I don't want to do that. I'm just thinking, like, from all of the programs that are available, do we have a standard process for evaluating the services provided, and are the right people getting access to it?
I think Emily has a question.
Yeah, I'm wondering too, hearing you say, Director Brown, that you already are being evaluated, maybe that can serve as some kind of a model that other programs that we could pass that on as a successful strategy. So if we do find out that there are other programs, that we might be able to say, look at how this one is, measuring success, and also very considerate of the dignity of the participants, and, lining out why it's a great process, that it could become a model to other programs that we might be able to help push out.
So we don't have a standard evaluation template or process. That was my black belt project. So hopefully that information will be, I don't want to share too much, but hopefully that information will be released before end of year.
Awesome. I think that this is a good idea, Commissioner Sass, that it's really something to have our eyes on, as far as being able to tell a story with data, and then also to be able to help organizations balance what it's like for the experience of the participants as well. But it's often coming up in our larger meetings about, who's really using the programs and things like that. So how do we look at that is something that I think is worth our attention for sure.
Correct, because from a health equity standpoint or disparity, I'm looking at those who are in need but not using the program, and why are they not using the program? Does it not fit their needs? Do they not trust the program? Like, what is it that makes them not access the program? And for them, that gap just gets bigger and bigger, while we might be closing the gap in some other areas. So that was kind of my
these are
question
great
around.
questions for the town hall, when we can really ask people about their experiences and needs, but then also behaviors and what drives those particular behaviors. I think that's really important.
So, Tiffany, I have another question for you, and I apologize, lots of questions for you today, but in the Lexington Health Department Community Needs Assessment, there are pages and pages and pages of essentially community-based organizations, programs that are out there helping with all the social drivers of health and things that people can go to. But is there anyone in the county that is coordinating all of that. So one of the things that they've recommended to bring communities together so there's not duplication of services, and even funding that programs
No.
that are receiving the funding. So creating this community hub essentially. And so there's none of that.
So this is something that I hear in almost every meeting or collaborative type of work that I've been involved in, is that there are silos. And so you don't know what every organization is doing. So there is duplication of work, funding is stretched between multiple organizations that do the same thing, have the same programs and services. There is no one community hub that has all of this information. There's like Connect, KYNECT, that some of these organizations have gone to give each other referrals. But not everyone, not all the organizations are affiliated with Connect. And then if they're not all affiliated, then they can't receive the referral. And if they can't receive the referral, they can't provide the service and measure. There's, and then so there's duplication of effort. So no, there isn't one hub. So folks, most of the time, we'll just create a list of all the organizations that they know that do this work, or that are in the or indirect services are in the direct service organization.
So
space.
I'm thinking that this might be, and we sort of very small defined this in our last report with our recommendation to sort of have one person manage housing referrals or transportation or those kinds of things. But this really is taking it bigger into that community hub, and technology is a part of that, that everybody's using the same referral source and managing referrals through that. Connect is free through the state. There's no cost for that. And actually they're paying community-based organizations per referral that they use inside of Connect. So community-based organizations can actually get money for using that referral source. So I'm wondering, and I'll send out information on the community hubs, but I think that we could further define our recommendation of a CHW, but as creating a community hub. And when they talk about creating a community hub, they're talking about using one of the larger community-based organizations or even the health department to serve as that hub to organize all the rest of the programs within Fayette County. And it also works to identify who gets what percentage of funding sources based on percentage of who's helped, who needs help, those kinds of things. So it creates more of an equitable process in delivering or outlining who gets funds, whether it be grant funds or government funds or those kinds of things. And so I'm thinking that maybe that would be something we might want to explore as a recommendation for Fayette County.
So also remember our purview. When we give recommendations, they should be to the mayor and to the administration, not to the entire county, because that's not our purview.
Correct. This would be to the mayor and to
something that we could implement within local government. So if you're wanting to get other community partners, that would be that isn't the mayor's purview to give directives to community organizations. So the recommendations need to be to the mayor and her administration. So, which is one of the things, which was what we found, and why we have not been able to implement recommendations in law enforcement, justice, and accountability, because they are to the courts. they need to be to the mayor and administration.
Right. I guess I thought that recommendation could, like, the mayor and team could then collaborate with others to,
Could, but that's not like, so for instance, the recommendation, I think it's under health disparities around CHWs or around patient provider congruence. It is not, that's not under local government purview, LFUCG purview. So we have little to no impact in with those recommendations, or getting buy-in from those other organizations to do more, especially in the nonprofit world, that if we're not funding them.
so I think that's part of what I have struggled with in this subcommittee and maybe even the larger commission, because when you talk about health disparities, health equity, you are talking about access. You're talking about access to care, insurance, co-pays, transportation, housing, which, Lexington's doing a lot around housing, but housing, homelessness, like, we are not able to do it. A lot of those things are state. They need to
So
come
that's
from the state.
right. So which is one of the goals for this, for the commission, is to identify barriers, not to solve for, which that's, it seems like we
Correct.
always get to, is solving for. So identifying the barriers to access. We can then use that to go out and make partnerships similar to the mobile market recommendation to improve food access and healthy food options. That's how broad that recommendation was. It wasn't to create a mobile market. So there's several programs or activities that could come from identifying a barrier to health disparities. Okay, diet, exercise, transportation, housing. But what does that look like? What is the how does the recommendation need to be written so it's not the solution to, but it identifies the barrier?
So we identify the barrier and the mayor and her team come up with the solution. Is that what you're saying? Oh, you're on.
Yeah, that's what happens.
So where is this, like, the solution that comes is based on research? Like, they'll take our barrier, our identified barrier, and do the research, gather all the information and the data, and then create a solution.
Absolutely.
Okay. So could a recommendation be, because one of the barriers is, like you said, all these community-based organizations are siloed. There's duplicate work. There are multiple people trying to receive care from multiple places. They get one from one place and then they end up being denied from another place because they've already received. So that work has been done. Could it be that the recommendation would be to break down the silos of community-based organizations for a more streamlined process to address SDOH?
That sounds really good.
My apologies for stepping away.
Okay. So we've kind of talked through the community needs assessment, similarities, differences, and we've been discussing the opportunities to address health disparities and identify top priorities. So it sounds like I think from here, I just need to send out this information or upload it to the SharePoint so you guys can get it. Our last report recommendations. And then for our September 17th, we might need to think more broadly in our recommendations that really identify the barriers and what we need to do, which we did. Like, data is a barrier, but then the mayor and team need to come up with the solution so that we have better data to understand how we can help those most in need. Yes, Emily.
And I would love for us to think too, and I'm not coming with the answer necessarily, but kind of what's the in between work? Because if we're going to be, we wait for an RFP to, come to a selection, and then there's a year to do the work, and then we'll be able to react off of that data with additional recommendations. But what can we do as a subcommittee between now and, 2 years, 2026? And so, we might be able to think a little bit smaller at this point of, for example, and I hear, I am also hearing that we can't just recommend someone else's services, right? But we could potentially, and we're not short term going to open this hub, right? But if we short term, what are some of the 2025 wins that we hope to have while we wait on this data? And even if it's just that we are, without recommending someone else's work, could we do something like invite Connect to come and speak with us about what their resources are, and then, we could at least, when a town hall happens, that we can invite them, that we might be able to amplify some of the work that's already happening. Maybe we could invite some folks along the way while we're waiting on some of this data to come in, or what might we be able to do kind of in the meantime?
Yeah, I hear you all. Government moves very slow. Um, it's the slowest thing I've ever been a part of. Um, but I appreciate it because of the effects that it can have. Um, could you invite Connect to come to to a commission meeting, or absolutely to speak? I need to figure out the town hall situation, um, and how we can do that. If there's a potential to open that up prior to the consultant. Um, so I don't know, or if we can do those alongside the consultant. Um, but the goals that you all make aren't implementation goals. The goals that you all make are goals for, you know, how you all will work together to accomplish the duties set forth in the ordinance. Um, so that's the fine line that we have to walk. Yeah, that's the fine line we have to walk. It's really hard because the entire commission is full of doers. It's like we need to do something, and I appreciate it. Um, but walking that fine line with even the town halls, um, when we discussed that with, when I've discussed it with the mayor and Tyler, it would be for the commission to come and sit in and listen, and not necessarily to ask questions or prompt questions or anything like that, which totally is different than how I initially thought that this could work. There is, there are ways in our meetings to invite public comment, and whatever, qualitative data you would want to extract from that, lived experience you want to extract from that, I think is also valuable. But I don't know how else that I don't see how or what. I guess it would just be what the group decides its goals are within the next so over many years, and how you want to conduct the committees over the next so over many years, with change also being factored in. Um, yeah, I don't know how we would. I don't know, other than just the similar to how Commissioner Sass has created her agendas for getting us to October. I don't know how else we would do that, or to say this is the number of recommendations we want to make to the full commission by such and such a date. These are the steps that we're going to take to do that. These are the organizations that we want to hear from, and to inform our work, this is the data we would like to collect or to use to inform our decisions. Those are the type of goals that I think that this commission has the power to make, outside of implementation, town hall type of um, interactions.
Well, and Tiffany, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about we discussed mental health, how mental health I guess is a barrier, like to wellness, right? And we can talk about the lack of mental health services available to Fayette County, but we could also talk about how the mental health, the a person's mental health may also lead them into substance use as a coping mechanism, or be then leading to substance use disorder, because substance use is one of the big topics right now as far as mental health and wellness. So we're not really giving the solution, other than mental health is a barrier to wellness, a barrier to health. And then we can talk about the access, like who actually is able to access the mental health services, because we know a lot of places are not taking Medicaid, which is part of our vulnerable patient population, and so they are not necessarily having equal access to mental health. So we could talk about all that, and so that's the barrier that we've identified. But then the recommendation would be to what? Like implementation would be improve mental health services, which we're not supposed to make that recommendation. We're supposed to make the recommendation that mental health services is a barrier and leading to health disparities due to access to insurance and ability to access care. Like, I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
Yeah. We could process map the ideas. Um, so step one would be your um, improved mental health services or mental health access, or make available mental health access resources to the community. that could be, um, I guess, a sample of what a recommendation would look like. We can't. That's that's the challenge. Um, we can, um, maybe even make a recommend. I mean, there could also be one of the areas where we can have an effect would be to, increase funding for mental health services, through local government programs or grant making that specifically serve, um, marginalized population.
Okay. So, Maurice, I'm going to put you on the spot. You're relatively new to the commission. We've had a couple of meetings that we couldn't hold. We've had a couple of our subcommittee meetings that we did not have a quorum for. You've been listening in this meeting. So I'm just interested in any thoughts that you have currently. And if you want to decline to answer because I put you on the spot, feel free to do that as well.
No, I'll answer. I I think town hall meetings are great opportunities, but I struggle with town hall meetings because of access. And how are we going to get individuals who maybe are not as engaged with community resources with the ability to understand that this town hall meeting is for them?
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely agree with that.
And I think our public meetings are an easier form because they're virtual, but again, access requires smart technology or internet to also have that. So that's what I struggle with in a sense. And I think, like Tiffany mentioned, I think we're all doers. And so understanding the process of these are long-term goals we're working at, and understanding to be very strategic and in providing clear information that's sometimes not clear to access, and have resources to provide that right away. But I understand the long-term gain, but I think because we're doers, there's a short term of let's go fix and address this right now, but we have to work through the proper channels. Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of my initial thoughts. Thank you, Jessica, for letting me say those.
Absolutely. I wonder, so for our next meeting, I'd really like to review last year's report that was written, and I'll put that all on the SharePoint, but have everybody review that and come with maybe more barrier idea language versus implementation. And I'll be honest, it's been a little while since I read the report. I do think some of it is barrier focused, but there's also some recommendations that are probably implementation that we need to just change the language on. I think probably still relevant, but we just changed the language and how we're looking at it. So in my mind, this is visionary versus doing. Like, we have data and information for us to think about a vision of what we want Fayette County to look like versus this is what we want you to do to improve Fayette County. So maybe that's a good sort of analogy as to what we need to be thinking as we put in our recommendations. So read the report. I will also send the community needs assessment information so you can kind of look through that. I will send these other documents that I've been reading to gather information about barriers to care. They're all the same that our community needs assessment for Fayette County identified. And then there's some ideas and suggestions, which we're not supposed to make ideas and suggestions, but that will help us inform our vision for what we would like to see in Fayette County. And then also second homework, come with some ideas of places we could visit to engage the public and understand their needs, not necessarily for us to go in and hold a meeting or anything like that, but just participate and not participate, observe, like listen to the needs. Like, just think of some areas like that, and we would just be observers and listening to what our community members are saying, whether it's a community-based organization and the barriers that they're facing in servicing members of our community or whatever kind of organization. So just come with a few ideas, and then we might be able to gather, to your point, Emily, for 2025, how we would gather some information to inform goals, recommendations for 2025. Okay, Tiffany, we've got 9 minutes left. I have one more question for you. So you had some students working for you that were supposed to be gathering some data, some information. Were they able to gather anything that would be useful for us? Would you be able to share that?
Sure, I can share. They created an equity profile for the city, so I don't mind to share that with you all.
That would be great,
Yeah.
because I think that might also help inform our direction for 2025. I think for 2024, we have to take what we did for 2023, kind of look at it through a different lens, and then move to
Yeah.
2025, because we're sort of out of time, really. We've got a lot of information. I think we'll be fine to make a report, to make, recommendations. But essentially, we've got our next meeting, and then the report's due in October.
Right.
So, okay. Questions from anybody, concerns, parting thoughts?
Just one more thought. What is the easiest way to bring back this information to put it in the report?
What's the easiest way to bring back the information? What was the last part of that?
To ensure that we can put this information in the report.
So, Tiffany, correct me if I'm wrong. We probably need to bring it back to the next meeting, but we also may be able to do track changes in the SharePoint. Is that allowed?
I would do individual documents. So if you have something that you would like to add, just upload your information. You all read it. I guess whoever's gonna do, incorporate everything together. But one of you all's emails ended up, I don't know how, I think somebody had copied one of our attorneys, Michael Cravens, and he was like, I caution against doing any work in the Google Drive. So
Okay.
you can put your information in there, but I would try to stay out of that if you're working in a document together. I wouldn't work in a document together, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
So I can upload the information. Then
Mhm.
each individual person can download the information and create their track changes, their ideas, those kinds of things, and then upload it back to the SharePoint. And if I'm creating the final document, I take all of that information down, combine it, and then put
Mhm.
it back up. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Raisa, does that answer your question? Okay. I think it's also hard for us who are used to working in groups and doing this stuff there and following up via email, or in a work capacity, just sending a document and
Yep.
doing, like outside of a meeting. And so this is all just really different, and it's hard because there's so much work done in the background that we can't
Mhm.
do here.
Absolutely. That's just it's a lot different than your regular like nonprofit board or
Yeah.
it is. And I struggle with it sometimes too.
Emily?
And to that point, is it actually more efficient with our time if our next meeting we walk through it together?
Yeah, actually that would be a lot better because you're doing this in a public forum.
And then we
So,
can actually make live changes
yeah.
or identify, here's a spot where we want to have, let's make a different draft of this particular thing. And then can we assign that live and say, I can, this is going to take a lot of changes, so I can bring to the next one this particular paragraph and let's move on to the next. Would we be able to do that?
Yeah.
That might be it, instead of us all independently looking at the same thing, we can just look at it together, and anything that's going to take more specific effort, we might be able to pull that out and assign one person to do it. We can talk about kind of how that's going to be done.
So let's do this in hybrid to both of those. I'll upload the information, review it, certainly download the old report and, put in your brain, or you make changes, handwritten track changes, however you want to do it on the report. And then when we come together, we can sort of talk through all of that, and then we can assign portions to each other. That way we have it in our brain, we're ready to talk about it, and we're not trying to formulate thoughts at that next meeting.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So we're fully prepared to make it a working session. Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your guys' time today. It's been good, informative, and looking forward to our next meeting.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.